This is episode 115 in our road to Unicum, and today I review the HWK 12, a tier 8 German light tank in World of Tanks. So this is one of the tanks that people have often struggled with, and I picked it up again recently to be able to review it for this video. And I will say, after playing this tank, in some ways it reminds me of the Manticore in terms of having the small profile and the ultra paper armor. But I'll say that overall I found this tank to be surprisingly functional. So let me just talk about what makes the tank difficult to play. First of all, the armor is complete paper. I think it's like maybe 15 millimeters at its thickest, so you will get penned by high explosive and take massive damage. And the tank is also very lightweight, only 12.5 metric tons, so it's very susceptible to getting rammed. That isn't the most painful aspect of the tank, in my opinion. By far, the most challenging thing about playing this tank is the glacial shell velocity. So you can see there I was leading the tank, and the shell was so slow it actually landed behind that Cent 7-1. I should know better. I've been playing this tank enough to know that the shell velocity, it's so slow. But that can make it very difficult to hit tanks at range, especially if they're weaving and ducking and dodging. And the shell velocity with the AP is 630, and it's barely half that with high explosive. So when you fire high explosive, it looks like you're lobbing a grenade at your opponent, and at range, it's terribly unreliable hitting targets unless they are completely stationary. So we're going to look at a pair of tier 10 battles. First up is this Sand River battle, and then we're going to look at Ruinberg to show you more about dealing with difficult city situations. I actually had a number of different battles I could have shown you in this tank, but I intentionally picked the tier 10 battles since that's often a context that players struggle with. Now, most of their tanks have moved up to the zero line. I'm taking a guess here that this Centurion one is the only tank where he is, and he's in a tough position. If you're alone, he really should be closer to the ridge near us. That'll help protect him from Artie and also make it difficult for me to peek up and over and shoot him. But there, AMX M4 is in a very tough spot for me. I'm not going to be able to frontally pen him unless he's showing me his side armor. The AP penetration, the silver penetration, is 180, which is, it's fine for a tier 8 light tank. It shouldn't be any better. There's actually a huge increase when you move up to the premium round. It's 70 millimeters of penetration better at 250 for the heat. So that makes a big difference with a premium round. And notice, I got nailed there by the RHM, and it looked like another tank also fired, but I didn't spot them. That's probably the Striv sitting on that shelf. And obviously with a light tank like this where the armor is paper, you've got to be really careful and conserve. So this is about the only thing that I can do to try to spot that sniper shelf right above their cap where the Rheinmetall Borsig is. But if their TDs are at all intelligent, they'll be sitting behind bushes, and if they're not firing from this distance, neither of us are going to spot each other. I came to this bush hoping that maybe they would be in between a gap between bushes and I would see them. Certainly if they fire, they'll lose their camo and there's a good chance I can see them. But the problem is that they don't have anything to shoot at right now. I was the only tank that they had to shoot at. Notice, I took a running start when I jumped up and over the hill, and I had to come up this way so that I wouldn't be spotted by the heavies. Obviously I'm risk getting shot at by their tank destroyers, but since I had gone up and over the hill, I was in a bad position. You can't stay there. And for the most part, I don't ever recommend going up and over the ridge directly like I did against the Centurion to get those two shots on him, because anything that's on the shelf will be able to hit you. It's way too exposed. But notice as I'm going diagonally away from their AMX M4 heavy, he doesn't spot me. My camo's good enough. He's not going to see me unless I shoot. So basically, there isn't really a good play for me north. Obviously, I don't want to run toward their shelf, because then I'm running toward their Rheinmetall Borsig, their Badger, and probably their Striv. And so those are three tanks that can crush me. Two of them can potentially one-shot me. So looking at the map, the better play for me is to see if I can counter their push that's gone all the way down to the one line. The problem is they're getting close enough that they can spot our tanks over by F1 and G1, and once they do that, that's going to be able to keep their arties busy. And potentially, because our tanks are so far back, this would allow them other tanks to push down the K lane. So I got to be careful here. I don't know if there's anything that's behind me to my left, so to the east, and I selectively choose to fire at the Luva over the IS-22. Why? The Luva is a taller tank, right? With the very weak side armor. And so, if you have the choice between two tanks and you don't want to risk aiming in, always take the easier shot. Unless there's an overwhelming reason to shoot at the other tank, like it's one-shottable, it's a tier 10, etc., you should take the easier tank, just keep your gun hot and working. Okay, so we've taken out their heavies. I don't know where their Bat Chat 12T is, and you'll notice I haven't been taking any fire. So it means that most of their tanks are probably no deeper than the 8 line, right? Nonetheless, I want to be careful as I'm approaching their base. You got to be cognizant of the fact that they're two arties, and so, I want to be careful as I approach them. My main goal here is not to use my gun unless there's a really good opportunity. It's to spot them first and foremost, right? Keep our two arties busy. Now, that being said about not using the gun, this is such a great opportunity to take out their Scorpion. You can see how slow that shell velocity is, right? I mean, he's moving in a vector towards me, so that's making the shot easy. But if he's, going side to side, I have to lead him, or he's about to drop back behind the corner, that's really rough. Notice I was kind of zigzagging around, to try to make it unpredictable. Am I driving forward, backwards, left, right, who knows? That already actually takes a pretty good guess. But we'll see how much closer. I'm kind of nearing the point at which I can't go much further, and obviously I don't want to peek over this ridge until my commander is back up. Okay, so we know where the Badger is. That's a frontal fortress. I can't pen him. Even if I loaded premium ammo, that's probably a no-go. We know where their Bat Chat 12T is, and we know where their Char Future is, and so the Char Future just lit me and he took a shot, so I can't stay here. Obviously, he's not only at high hit points, but he has up to 4 shells in his clip. Obviously only 3 left, but even right now I'm one-shottable because the Bat Chat already splashed me once. And so I need to stop pushing, and if I had the time to type in chat, I'd tell people to just chill out and don't push past the 5-6 lane. If you do that, you're going to give their TDs something to do, right? And meanwhile, our AE phase 1 is getting a little impatient here. And actually, this tank is a little bit, it's got kind of a high center of gravity. So you got to be careful. I've actually flipped over, done a barrel roll, taken damage from it. Okay, so remember, you just need one tank lit at a time to give your team something to do and for you to use your gun. And, that's a long way off. What happens with a lot of autoloaders is they'll tend to sit in place as they're using their gun. And so, there's just more time. And the thing is, like, if he's not moving, I just have to shoot where he is. That's the main thing. With the 630 meters per second of shell velocity, you're just going to have to guess. Are they backing up? Are they moving left to right? You're going to have to adjust accordingly. And, given that the shell velocity on this tank is so much worse compared to other tanks, it can make it hard to play other tanks and then hop into this one. All right, so we're close enough now that when they fire, we've got their Rheinmetall Borsig lit. And you can see with the HE round, I can't tell if I shot that previous shot with AP or HE, but nonetheless, it was so slow that, it didn't get there in time. And I've got to scramble. I was able to, there was a reasonable chance that I would survive the one shot from the Striv. Obviously, you don't want to give RNG a chance to kill you, and I did, although, the reload on that tank is so fast, it looks like he got a second shot off at me, and I just managed to get out of the way. But the main thing is I actually don't want to stand right by the rock here, because if Artie splashes the rock, I'm dead. Only 2 hit points. So I think even if he got as close to probably 7-8 meters away, the splash damage would kill me. I don't know exactly, but you want to be careful. The lower you get, the more careful that you have to be. Although it's important not to be like so tentative that you're not contributing in some meaningful way. So if you look at the map, think about where you would go. Okay, I'll tell you my thought process. So I can't push the K line. The Char Future is still down there. I don't want to push the J lane because then their Striv or their Badger may see me. Really the best shot, if he's available, is that Centurion 7-1 that's up in the corner. But as it turns out, their Char Future, you can notice on the minimap, he just went into the ditch. All right, so you notice I immediately repositioned myself to go take advantage of that. And actually now, watching this video, I'm glad that, sometimes like you'll take just a little bit of falling damage from the suspension and such. I potentially could have died there. That would have really sucked. So, okay. People always complain about the corridor meta, and I don't disagree that it's not an issue. People are like, there's not enough spotting locations. It's like, well, do you make use of the terrain by knocking down trees? Do you create your own bushes? Do you find little bushes like this that give you the first spot advantage and therefore the first shot advantage? And I'm waiting for the Char Future to cross a little bit to the south, and then he actually starts to cross a little later than I expected. But no, so here's another bush, going to pull up right behind it here. It's opaque, so even though I fire on him and he's a medium, I don't get lit. Now I'm in a good position here, and he's not going to be able to get out of this ditch without me getting that second shot off. And I take him down. Okay, so the main thing here, the Striv's definitely a little bit of a tough target to take out here, and what I'm going to do is now go down in the ditch, get underneath him. Okay, we know where the Badger is, and the Striv is presumably, he hasn't moved much, right? Some players just don't reposition all that much, and you know, both times when he was lit, he was within like the same square. Right? If I were him, I would be further to the west than where he is by 1 square, because he should spot my approach coming in. But you know, because he's sitting back too much where he is, he's not seeing me as I come up here. Right? Okay, now I've moved up just enough that I've got a shot on that 7-1. That's a really nice shot from distance. And I'll say, by the way, you know, the Mana Core, you guys heard me complain. I had a fair amount of responses, you know, both on YouTube and on Reddit from people who actually think that I'm underestimating the Manticore. And I realized, you know, thinking about it, what really bothers me about that tank, and it's the complete inability to meaningfully defend yourself, right? If you can only fire once every 12 seconds, and your gun handling's not that great, that's a terrible position to be in. Like a tank like this, I can fire every 6.6 seconds. I can deal damage, try to track them, you know, do module damage, set them on fire, etc. every 6.6 seconds, right? And so it's weird. Instead of having the Mana Core's gun, I would rather have this gun with the Mana Core's penetration and this gun with its rate of fire, right? So being able to fire every 6.6 seconds, 240 is, you know, would be obviously, that might be too overpowered, but my point being able to fire twice, you know, in the period of time, just about the period of time that you would fire, you know, with the Mana Core, is just, it's a huge difference in terms of what you're able to do to meaningfully protect yourself. Okay, so here we go. Another shot on 7-1, and, you know, you can see how long that shell takes to travel there, you know, and so the shell velocity really limits your ability to consistently land damage from range. So in this game, I've really done a pretty good job in terms of, you know, doing the appropriate amount of leading. But you know, I've had games with this tank where I, you know, felt like I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn because the shot would sail, and I'd see the tracer go by, you know, typically way behind where the tank actually ends up being, you know. But definitely, you know, this is a good game to show because it emphasizes how much in a light tank you should be using the mobility and pushing and probing different areas of the map to the point you got to go up to that point where it's no longer safe. It would be stupid or suicide scouting to push further, right? And you can see here the interesting thing between standard and premium, just for the total, not even including that reserve. There's about the profit amount from that battle is about 2.5 times higher with a premium subscription, right? And that's totally intentional. Wargaming has made it such that at higher tiers, it's difficult to make a profit even with silver ammo, right? And keep in mind, I just had a huge game, an ace tanker, you know, over 3k damage, 5 kills. You know, I should be rolling in the money, and you know, had that been a, you know, standard account, I would have made 12, 13k, but that's really not that much. Okay, now there is one thing here that I'm gonna do, which is a huge mistake, in my opinion, right there. I didn't do a very good job knocking over the bush. I should have knocked it over toward the left, right? It's now, like, if I want to be able to fire over the bush, I'm going to be exposing myself. And normally, if I knocked over the bush correctly, those guys to the west of me wouldn't see me, right? And I just forgot about that. And like, right there, they're Batchat 12T firing HE, which is typically very stupid. But as it turns out, he actually killed 2 of my crew members. And, you know, tanks with fewer crew members, the 2 and 3 crew member tanks, you've got to be careful. I tend to, by the way, use a premium first aid kit, and people, you know, have often asked me, why do you do that? And the main reason why, well, there you can see that the obvious value, it just healed both of the crew members who were killed. Now that doesn't happen a lot unless you get hit by high explosive, but the real reason why I use the premium, the large first aid kit, is for the passive crew protection. So there's like a minus 15% improved. I don't know if it's a plus 15 or minus 15 or how the calculation works, but you're less likely to lose crew members. And so that's the main reason why I use it. So some people have said, well, you know, you use premium consumables, you should just use premium ammo. And the thing about that, again, I've talked about this to death, but premium ammo really messes with, you know, the balance of tanks. Like, could you imagine, like, if I'm slinging 250 in this tank, that's just nuts for a tier 8 light tank, because I can frontally penetrate a lot of the harder tier 8 and tier 9 targets, which in my opinion, in a light tank, if I can do that, then what good is their armor? So I'm playing the vision game with a standard B. One thing that I didn't know, so there's the slightest gap in between the building and the bush, but it turns out it doesn't look like I can get spotted by it until after I fire. Now, standard B made a mistake right there. Notice he pulled back, right? So if you're going to stay in a gap, what you want to watch for is whether or not a tank stays in a gap so that if you pull out, they're going to have the first shot advantage, right? Typically, if you have another shell in your clip, and he's a standard B, and he probably did, if I fired and I pulled back, then he should maintain his position in the gap, so the second I pop out, he can shoot me, right? And he might have been worried because obviously, I played the vision game with him. And by the way, what you've witnessed here is a very common problem. Our mediums pushed up for no good reason. Our TVP got up on the road, which is a huge no-no, right? Because he can't brawl in that tank. Once he dumps his clip, he's defenseless. While he has his clip, he's strong, but because he pushed up so close to them and on the other side of the buildings, what he made it easy for them to do is just to move up and dogpile him, right? And this is just an awful situation. I mean, we were kind of weak in the field to begin with. While the TVP is alive, that really the threat of his gun can kind of hold back some of the masses, right? But, the moment that our TVP died, I stayed to land one shot on the E50M in the hopes that maybe I'd track him or back him off. But those guys just pressed W and pressured us, which they should. They should collapse field, because if we lose field and they get down to the southwest corner of the map, we're done. Our tanks that are still trying to brawl with our enemies to the north, over on the D and E lanes, they're going to get flanked and just eat a ton of fire. So in a situation like this, this is like there isn't going to be much vision control for me at this point, because if they reach the corner where our renegade is, they'll be able to spot me even if I don't shoot, right? As long as their tank is appropriately equipped with like optics if they're a medium, because it's mostly mediums and lights. It's all mediums and lights that are pushing at us, right? Our renegade, I try to get him to back up, so he's making a mistake. He's too far forward. The thought of coming and helping us, very good. But both he and the tortoise should stay back at an intermediate range where they were, right? The tortoise actually could have been staying a little bit back. There's like a little ridge about a square back where he could hide behind. And granted, his cupola would still be exposed, but the further you are away from people, the much harder it is for them to hit that target. And by driving forward, same with the renegade, they gave those enemy tanks what they wanted, which was the ability to not have to go far to kill them. If you have to aim in at a tank that's further away, that increases your exposure. And so, one thing which is really fortunate here, you can see what's interesting. Okay, so the E50M, you could tell by his behavior even before Sixth Sense light lit that he spotted me, right? His aiming went from being sort of general with his turret to suddenly being extremely specific and looking right at me, right? Whereas with the Progetto, he wasn't looking at me. I suspect the Progetto isn't using optics or maybe, I don't know. He should have spotted me. I am close enough. This is probably about 300 meters. That the great camo that I have shouldn't matter, right? The E50M, as soon as he came around the corner, spotted me immediately. And Tonstra, I don't know what wizardry he did to stay alive, but it's ridiculous that he's lived this long. And part of the blame goes on their 430. That guy should have just pressed W and gone right at Tonstra, because the Revelarice has a horrifically long reload time. But what we've been trying to do is, even if we lose the south part of the map, is to lose it as slow as possible. And you can see our guys are dogpiling their T95, which is a very dangerous tank, but absolutely terrible when it comes to getting flanked. And then I'm going to put a shot into the T30 here. I underestimated the E50M speed. That was my mistake for not moving up further, right? Because I'd still be alive. Their 430 might have been able to shoot down the spoke diagonally to the north, shooting from the southwest to the northwest. But at least I got one more shot into the T30. And then the good thing is that our Wheezy 120 is going to play this reasonably well overall. And the main thing to note is there's no reason to push toward their cap. Once they step into our cap, we have to respect that fact. And this is such a small map, right? And moreover, their Object 430 is a dingus for sitting in our cap in a position where he can be spotted out in the open like that, right? Because that ridge that the Wizzy just drove by effectively hid most of his hull. So he's hull down, he's got a strong turret. Now, Wizzy's at much higher health. The E50M should not be coming out sideways. The Wizzy, what he should do right here, drive up alongside. He's trying to drive too far out. He should have turned and just lined up side by side with the E50M, because the E50M has pretty decent frontal armor, but it's tall, and the side armor, if you're just sitting right next to it, is very weak. You probably, I think it was like all the way back in like episode like 14 or 15, I showed how to troll like tall box tanks. You just get up alongside of them if you're in a Chinese or Russian medium, and then laugh while they struggle to aim at you while you can shoot at their hull. But you know, they're 430, really kind of through the match, and you know, just stubbornly sitting on cap on a very tiny little map here. You know, we ended up finishing them off. So the HWK-12, I was very surprised. You know, I've got like a 64% win rate over 80 battles, over 1,400 damage per game in it, which again was a surprise. So I think the tank, even though the shell velocity is terrible and it's paper mache, the fact that the view range is so high and the gun performance in terms of alpha and damage is pretty good, the superb gun depression of minus 10 degrees, those make it a finesse tank, but a tank which is capable of meaningfully defending itself, which again, the Manticore, in my opinion, can't do it. So let me know what you think about the tank in the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care.